Hey guys, welcome and ting and ting and ting. I'm back with another video for all year, you understand what I mean? And this one is called Bucharest's Golden Age, the Interwar Period. Yeah, so I'm starting to get into the history of the cities now, and we're gonna start off with Bucharest and ting, you know what I mean? So let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see what we can learn about Bucharest here.
Interwar Bucharest reveals itself as an environment filled with contrasts, where nuances, scents, sounds, and varied rhythms converge, underlining the richness of its social and economic life. People and businesses operate within a specific framework of that period, marking a distinct identity easily recognized. However, Interwar Bucharest presents certain features that seem to fit its current appearance. The sky and the twilight have not significantly changed over time. Precisely, children from that era and those of today continue to build snowmen every winter, enjoying sledding on Sismidu Park's pathways. The inhabitants of the interwar era harbor dreams and aspirations similar to those of the present, despite the challenges and specific trials of the time. The spread of diseases and unpredictable deaths were the harsh realities they faced, leaving behind desolate places that would later become cemeteries or burial sites. During the day, the city was characterized by hustle and bustle, but at night, under the glow of the lights, it acquired a mysterious and alluring aura. The imaginative traveler can feel the pulse of life during that time, much like a vibrant and new city when seen from the perspective of a later generation. They wisely avoided the fenced-off areas on Calia Victoriei, where the demolition of the Frascati Hotel to make way for the Telephone Palace, the tallest building in the city, sparked debates. Instead, patrons relaxed at the artificial wave pool at Lido, and the noise of automobiles mixed with the clip-clop of horses' hooves and the sound of trams traversing the city like electric toys. Sometimes, aimless walks without rules led the residents from Vacaresti to Taikaleza, from Colentina Barrier to the bazaar on Calia Grivity, where the Iron Man sold nails. As they climbed the stairs leading to Putul Upper East Alley, they could smell the lingering scent of urine in the summer air, before reaching the vicinity of the Floresca pits, where they counted those still barefoot, with calloused soles and hands full of money. Nearby, the songs of crickets, the squeaks, and the shouts resonated on the outskirts of Bucharest. In the Stonecross neighborhood, a local establishment displayed an ad for leather beer on the wall, and a tall woman played an unknown melody on an accordion, while a couple of dancers performed a graceful choreography, he barefoot and she wearing a light dress. Just a few minutes away at the Athenaeum, concerts were taking place. In the gilded hall, Anton Holban was easily recognizable, behaving timidly and enchanted by the enchanting music. Pastoral Tedorianu, in the same place, responded with irony to those who dared to offer advice on symphonic music. The language used by the inhabitants of this era appears both familiar and exotic at the same time. Like their own words, their expressions seem rooted in a known territory but convey a distinct foreignness, much as our own terms might appear, in an unusual context, clear and transparent in their particular sense.
That's something else you don't think of too. I mean, look at these old videotapes of Bucharest. I mean, it's not as hustle and bustle as a big city in America, even for back then, that era, because I've seen videos of back then. This looked like it was probably in the 20s, maybe 30s there, but there's horse-drawn carriages. Well, maybe earlier than that, because there's horse-drawn carriages, and I see automobiles there too. That's kind of cool. See, you never think about stuff like that, as far as other places are concerned. And this is just kind of surreal because you're living out here in the West, you only see mainly about around here. And those Balkan countries are so hidden by, of course, for political reasons or whatever, that you don't really think of them as having an existence like this. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So looking at this give you a kind of a historical excitement. You know what I mean? Learning about the, I'm actually, I like this documentary so far. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Let's keep watching.
Their communication reflects a note of politeness, where they use formulations like dumne vostra, or, in cases of familiarity, dumnata. It is not uncommon for even young lovers to use the term dumnata. Everyday objects are acquired from Pravali, not magazine, while the youth gather at the dancing, not the discoteca, engaging in the act of flirter. Evidently, the term flirt is borrowed from French, as it couldn't be pronounced otherwise. When they make use of cars, they call them automobiles or hippomobiles instead of Messina, alluding to a broader context. During the cold season, they opt for stimbar, using bastowing instead of bait, or indulge in bobsleigh as opposed to sanius or snowboard. They wear hanares and are informed about Louvain from Switzerland, which as usual caused significant casualties. Some of the inhabitants live in blockhouses and face issues with the heater, which operates on coal. Despite these peculiarities, the term block is considered an abbreviation by them, and they often avoid using abbreviations. Expressing themselves through root words is viewed as a sign of modernity, giving them a sense of youth and connection to the trends of the time, even though they reside on the outskirts. While their direct language is largely the same, they retain reluctance to use expressions with sexual connotations in the presence of young ladies. Many of them gather to watch football or boxing matches, attending sporting events with friends or girlfriends who seem undisturbed by scenes of violence, such as a precise uppercut, or a broken nose under a glove. In terms of the auditory experience, records are listened to with the help of a thin needle mounted on the phonograph arm. However, at night, voices can be heard interpreting the song Good Night Nimmy, sung by June Moscopole. For a traveller from a distant future and another corner of Bucharest, with different thoughts and concerns, the details are what stand out. Daily elements, even the mundane or fleeting ones, define everyday life and leave a specific imprint on the period. For example, in 1930, all women wore dresses or skirts, eschewing pants. At the intersection of Elisabetta Boulevard and Calia Victoria, near the Alcalay bookstore, the striped traffic light, positioned
It's ironic that he said that all women wear skirts and dresses. Because even when I came here in 1986, women wore pants wherever on the island, but not as much. When I came here, they didn't wear dresses very much. No, I guess they wear dresses when they went to church a lot back then, but I wasn't a churchgoer, so I never really paid much attention there. But I remember it struck me that really odd that my ex-wife only had 2 dresses. She hated wearing dresses. She wear them a lot now for some reason, but back then she didn't own very many dresses at all. Period. And that's something I had to get used to. They all wore jeans and sweats and stuff. Because I was in a college town. You know what I mean? But I guess the idea of women wearing dresses mainly. Well, for one, the Caribbean is kind of hot anyway, so wearing dresses would be more comfortable. But it was also considered more ladylike, and even now, a lot of women don't wear dresses here very much. Not even in the winter. It's like a more hippie thing to see a woman wearing a dress. They all just chuck on some jeans or some sweats or something like that. But, I find it interesting that at that period of time, that's what most women wear. And I came from the Caribbean in 1986. And so then in the 70s and the 80s and before then, they wore dresses there too. And the thing about not cursing in front of women, I didn't utter obscenities in front of women until like about 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago, and even now I really don't say any curse words at all, really. But many in front of women, very rare you hear me say that. But man, these women up here, boy, they have their mouth, boy, they curse like crazy up here. You know what I mean? So yeah.
In the middle of the intersection, caught one's attention. Each traffic light in the city had a traffic officer nearby, responsible for directing the arrow based on traffic flow, indicating stop or go. These officers were often recognized by their suede gloves and wore a whistle and a peaked cap. From the perspective of a traveler from the future.
That's another thing that I grew up on. That was prevalent there. Policemen directing traffic. And my dad was a policeman, so on the street where I lived, there was a little box type thing pushed on top this wall, and there was a really strange intersection. One road came this way, one road came another way, one road came straight ahead from where he's standing on this box, and another one came down this way, and he'd have to like stop them, and he had the glove and the whistle and everything. So I remember that as a kid. It's a pity these days they don't have those things for kids to see. That was kind of cool. Now they have all the street lights and stuff.
Sure. The moderate congestion and cautious traffic seemed surprisingly mild and hard to understand. The streets were not marked. Cars moved in zigzags, with carriages and pedestrians paying little attention, despite the officer hanging from the traffic light with an invisible thread. The honking and engine noises made those from the future jump in their saddles. Cars equipped with a spare tire fixed in the back were spacious and comfortable, but getting into them required lifting one's leg fairly high. This proved useful for curious men to take a casual glance at women's legs covered in silk stockings and shod in high-heeled shoes with straps. Sometimes, under the white license plates, a small circle appeared with the inscription R, Romania, indicating that the car's owner had traveled to Paris. During the summer, riding in a convertible automobile was a genuine pleasure. These inhabitants live in parallel realities where they can find both joy and sadness, whether due to their unique desires and dreams. Some wish to find that partner who understands them, while others fight for the right to vote. Some aspire to power, while others focus on accumulating wealth. There are those who dream of fame, salvation, or love. Meanwhile, the watches worn on their wrists continue their discreet course. In the evening, when they return to consult them, the wheel of the turned-back clocks moves with a slight sting, like an old woodworm on a beam. Time flows incessantly from their lives, and they cannot afford to let it pass without trying to understand each other. Their chronology is rigorous, with only 2 decades between the end of one conflict and the beginning of another. Despite the uncertainty, deep down they feel that another war may follow soon. They managed to rapidly build a sophisticated city and lay the foundations for stable political life, exceptional literature, comparable to those of countries with longer traditions, and an open and natural society. Just as quickly as they erected theaters, schools, hospitals, and the Bologna Hotel, a multi-story stone building with balconies situated on the seaside at 1,400 meters altitude at the top of the Bucharest Mountains. Between the 2 world wars, they went through successive Bucharests, cities that were born and replaced each other, absorbing each other's population and problems. From the Bucharest of 1920, where horses and cars shared the streets, and where the smell of manure vied with that of gasoline from exhaust pipes, to the Bucharest of 1923, with approximately 20 streets electrified and illuminated by aerial gas, petrol, or even moonlight. Then we move on to the Bucharest of 1925, where carts were beginning to disappear, as were the hand-pulled carts of itinerant merchants disrupting street traffic.
What a time in history, man. What a time in history. When the cars were like taking over the horse carriages. I don't think in my lifetime I've lived through something like that impact the human way of living as much as that. That was a big thing there, you know what I mean? I wonder how the people felt going through that. And I guess Romania was probably not a superpower per se at the time. Well, they weren't, I'm assuming. So the change was probably just as slow as it was on the island. Well, not as slow, but you know what I'm saying. So it was coming in slowly, like you said, it was during that decade of peace and stuff, by 1925. the cars, they have less carriages and more cars and stuff. But man, can you imagine? Can you imagine living through that specific time in history? That's kind of cool.
In 1929, the last 7 horse-drawn trams were taken out of service, and in 1931, numerous new cinemas opened, culminating in the modern construction of the Romanian Insurance Society building on Taci Ionescu Boulevard, which included the ARO Theatre, equipped with a ventilation system and a seating capacity of 2,000. The ARO Theatre withstood the test of time in all subsequent versions of Bucharest. The year 1933 brought the rehabilitation of the Patriarchy Hill and numerous constructions, including Mr. Malax's factories, buildings awaiting completion. Mayor Tarnakop installed 12 elegantly designed public urinals in the city. Afterward, in the post-1935 period, Bucharest underwent an intensive process of cleaning, rebuilding, and modernization. The Dâmbovița River was cleaned and arranged, and the lakes were transformed into attractions with suggestive warning signs. Caution, deep water. The Arch of Triumph was rebuilt, and the Adriatica building was completed. The Athene Palace Hotel
They partying, boy.
replacing the shell-shaped pinnacle with a fresher approach. Streets were widened, and new constructions followed the latest architectural trends. The Carlton Block at the end of Regale Street was erected, and the entire city sparkled like a jewel, offering spectacular possibilities of reassembly. As the years go by, while these people age, their Bucharest retains eternal youth. The tranquility of their city is amplified as the rest of the world becomes increasingly agitated. They have experienced ideals and follies, refinement and opacity, generosity and villainy, balance and fanaticism, clarity and fantasy, good and evil. They were never forced to adhere to a single mindset or express uniform opinions. With all their complexities and contradictions, this world was neither heaven nor hell, but simply a normal reality full of possibilities like any other. Here, they experience everything. Interwar Bucharest was the place where absolutely everything happened. During the summer, the pavement of Bucharest, whether made of asphalt or cobblestone, stands out due to the constant passage of numerous residents. The rhythm of the strolls is set by the sharp heels of women and young ladies, as well as by the well-maintained broad heels of gentlemen. Among them, a few barefoot pedestrians slip by, a young Romani man carrying a violin who hesitates at the side door reserved for artists of the Athenaeum, or a few couriers looking to make a small profit, or even a few women invoking the rain in the Colentina neighborhood. The footwear and velours of both men and women avoid the dirt, facing it only when necessary. From time to time, people gather around Carol Beanier along Victory Avenue, where thermometers, barometers, eyeglasses, and even pince-nez glasses are sold. The largest thermometer in the city is displayed on this merchant's window. The mercury has dropped and is nearing its limit, -14 degrees Celsius. Otherwise, the pavement bears the weight of car wheels, carriages, and trams. Of course, there are also the buses that move slowly like tanks through the sand, and from time to time in Viton, the bear man brings a chained bear for a walk in the area. Whether on foot or traveling by tram, Bucharest residents go through various experiences in their capital. Painting has not yet captured one of the most characteristic moments of Romanian, more precisely Bucharest, psychology. That moment when an extremely elegant, delicate, fragrant, and perfumed woman crosses the street, trying to step gracefully through the scattered mud. There's a whole poetry in the way she nonchalantly, coquettishly weaves her way through the filth. This comment, apparently attributed to Tudor Ardezi and reportedly made at Capsa, opens an article called Bucharest, the Intellectual Inferno, published without a signature in January 1924, in the second issue of the Intellectual and Artistic Labour Weekly. Although most of the magazine is written by Camil Petrescu, who uses various pseudonyms, including C. Pitraru, Virian, and Radical, the anonymous author describing Bucharest in truly radical terms: a city of upstarts, a city where poverty weighs heavier on an intellectual worker than anywhere else, is undoubtedly Camel Petrescu, as the style and vocabulary matches most common writing. For the pedestrian walking in the winter of early 1924, things seem bleak. The city is ugly, endlessly ugly. Look at the streets full of a special kind of filth, with miserable pedestrians being splashed by cars like sprinklers, barely pulling up their coats and boots. Often people have to step down from the sidewalk to avoid puddles, and then quickly rise to avoid being run over by a car. A tram ride is another adventure. In the evening, in front of the Karpati restaurant, it seemed like a large public gathering was taking place. Such a journey did not cost just 3 lei, but 3 lei plus a pair of shoes, a hat, or even the whole wallet. In moments of massive pressure, who knows? Elegant women were pulled by the tram that didn't come to a complete stop, and others were pushed into the tram during the rush. 2 weeks later, the same magazine published a short note on the last page titled Tram No. 14. The King of Belgium returned home by tram. Let's say to the palace, because he had a flat tire on his car. This reveals not only his democracy, but also the quality of Belgian trams. For King Ferdinand, we would never want him to try to take tram No. 14 to go to Cotrocini. However, the dissatisfaction was shared, though for different reasons and from a different aesthetic perspective, by the plastic chronicler of literary universe, N.N. Tonitsa, who, in an article from 1926, titled Bucharest Landscape, said that the Bucharest landscape artist ignores the capital. Thus, Bucharest, this paradoxical combination of such contradictory aspects, old and new, elegance and squalor, melancholy and joy, represents an endless field of inspiration for painters in search of living beauty.
You know, the cool thing about these old photos too, and that's another thing I like to watch these old things. It's like it's somebody's great grandmother or somebody's great grandfather or great 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 great, you know what I mean? And you see these young kids, you know, and if these young kids were alive today, they'd be well over 100 years old. It's like all these people walk the face of the earth before you do. And that's the magic of having a video, you know what I mean? Like, you know within good reason that everybody in this video have passed on. But it's like they're still here. They're living history, you know what I mean? That's what's cool about videos, I think.
Beauty. But artists pass by this aesthetic treasure with indifference. Bucharest calls us with its expressive, almost painful expressions, but no one answers. Tonitsa describes the street where his studio is located with all its contrasts. For example, a modest house with white walls that seem like an old fresco, with reflections dressed in light and color, crowned with emerald. The little house is flanked by 3 acacias that tilt diagonally, as if after a storm, with branches that, under the elegant stylization of the leaves, hide thin, fragile ones as flexible as black snakes. In the tall grass, and to the left of the house, rises proudly a 5-story building with small windows. The contrasts and their aesthetic impact, already observed by the eyes and pen of foreign travelers in the 19th century, continue to fascinate the modern traveler armed with a camera, a pen, and a notebook. Willy Prager, a young photojournalist who arrived from Berlin in 1939, captures a distinctive mix on one of the simplest routes in Bucharest. The stroll that begins in the west and is maintained in a straight line along a single boulevard transforms into an oriental experience at the opposite end. When you traverse Breșanu Boulevard, now Maharu, to Breșanu Square, you feel like you're in America because the most representative thoroughfare in modern Bucharest seems to have been imported from America. Not just the tall buildings, but also the car showrooms, elegant gas stations, hotels, cinemas, and the street's width contribute to this impression. On the other hand, beyond Breșanu Square, this axis cutting through Bucharest from north to south has a predominantly eastern appearance. Here, you'll find residential blocks, but the specific aspect is given by long rows of rugs hung by merchants along the street. Whether you're on foot or traveling by car, on Victory Avenue, Victory Avenue is contrasted with a merchant street and a more picturesque crowd of people and goods than Lipscani, as labelled in
That's
the
them, they're
German
rich folk.
photojournalist's album when he immortalised Bucharest at the age of 31. Victory Avenue is the city's main artery, a street with a rich history, known as the heart of the elegant and modern world in Bucharest. Here, Bucharest residents take a stroll twice a day, at noon and in the evening. It's the place to be seen, meet friends, marry zait sich, man trifft sich, get the day's news, do business, and most importantly, form new relationships. Often, the street becomes so crowded that there is barely room for cars in the middle of the road. Moreover, the city also offers a street dedicated to trinkets and stalls, namely Bazaka Street, a narrow alley located near the Great Square. However, its future is uncertain in the context of the capital's modernization, involving the construction of a major boulevard. Most of the protagonists of interwar novels stroll on Victory Avenue in their fictional Bucharest, just as novelists often do in real Bucharest. Cesar Petrescu even dedicated an entire novel to this street. From Alcalay to Capsa, from Hachette Bookstore to the National Theatre, from the editorial office of the magazine Credinta to the apartment rented by Mihail Sebastian. Literary life is deeply intertwined with this literary artery of Bucharest during the interwar period. Around 1930, there's a one-way street on Victory Avenue heading towards the Dambovita River. Valeriu Marder, a professional driver and amateur journalist at Magazinul Magazine, finds the route. If there's no heavy traffic, you can cover the distance by car in 3 minutes and longer. However, the same cannot be said for walking, which Marder, the pedestrian, describes as demoralizing. Walk on this stretch of road between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. or between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. It's a fascinating spectacle, an amazing crowd. The sidewalks are crowded and pedestrians occupy almost half of the street on both sides. Through the middle, amid shouts and honking, cars weave their way. Their wheels touch the pedestrians, splashing them with mud, and it looks like they're about to run them over. But no one seems to be bothered. The journalist makes a historically valuable observation, noting that people struggle and work hard for every step they take.
Okay.
When analyzing the collective character...
You know, it's funny, I'm watching this and it seems like they're showing a lot of society people, and I was like, okay, how was it for the working class, you know what I mean? And maybe these people are considered the working class, but then, you know, it's keeping up with the Joneses and stuff, and then you remember the struggle. Then he said the struggle to live and survive and things like that. So there was an underclass that was living through that. It's funny because it's if this is high society that they're showing, it seems like Bucharest was going through some kind of a something at that point, you know, that got interrupted by the war.
Character of Victory Avenue. He observes that in the anonymous crowd on the street, a variety of people can be found, including maids, former or future ministers, schoolgirls, and famous courtesans, unpublished writers, untalented actors, opposition politicians, and celebrities. Enthusiasm and liveliness are contagious, and this environment seems to convey an atmosphere of happiness, love, and optimism. However, film critic D.I. Sakianu doesn't share this perspective, expressing a certain misanthropy in 1934. He writes that most of the population seems to be terribly ugly, regardless of where you are in the city, whether on the street in the tram, at a cafe, on a train, at the theatre, or the office. He's not referring to people's physical features, but to their lack of taste in the way they dress, move, walk, talk, and gaze. Sakianu observes an impression of an absolute lack of grace in people's behavior and appearance. 2 periods of the year when the city becomes particularly attractive are spring in March and April, and autumn in October and November. In these months, the city's landscape serves as a backdrop for the beauty of the city and its women. In any case, these are months when Bucharest shines with beauty. These months brighten up the city and bring optimism. Moreover, the population takes walks and enjoys the beauty of the places. In 1934, Sukianu brought up the state to the city of Bucharest, which he viewed with a less favorable perspective. He noted that most of the city's residents seemed to lack apparent interest in their personal appearance and manners, whether they encountered each other on the street, in a tram, at a cafe, on a train, at the office, or at the theatre. Sukianu's observation didn't concern people's physical traits, but rather a lack of refinement in how they dressed, moved, spoke, and carried themselves. He mentioned that this created an impression of a general lack of grace in the city. In contrast, another author highlighted in the text appreciated two specific periods of the year, spring and autumn, when the city shone in its beauty. These months were considered the most attractive because the urban landscape provided a suitable backdrop for the city's beauty and its women. These periods were characterized by joy, beauty, and optimism, and people enjoyed strolls and the vibrant atmosphere in the city. At night, the streets gradually emptied, but restaurants, cinemas, theaters, bars, and gardens filled with people. The lights of advertisements extended onto the sidewalks, creating a colorful kaleidoscope-like spectacle, while on buildings, bright letters clustered into gigantic myriads. In addition to the bustling urban life, Bucharest offered a variety of beautiful parks, such as the Botanical Garden, Queen Maria's Garden at Cotroceni, Carroll Park, Icona Garden, Eonid Park, and the Bishop's Garden, with Sismigiu often being referred to as the Artist's Garden. These green spaces provided residents with a refuge full of nature and charm. Another author, Paul Zotter, made a comparison between Eonid Park and Sismigiu, highlighting their different characteristics.
Now, here's what I'm going to say. In the comment section, tell me if this sort of mirrors Bucharest as it is now. Because there seems to be a little bit more hope and stuff going on there, a little bit more pessimistic about the future, optimistic, I should say, about the future and all of that. Is that what's happening there now, like in the interwar times? Is that what's happening there now? Comment down below and let me know. I know a lot of people said that there's a lot of trying to make ends meet and stuff like that, but that's pretty much anywhere in the world. Because I know there's a lot of that right here where I am. I mean, a lot of that. But comment down below. Is there a lot of hope for the future? You know what I mean? And certain changes would be needed to be made and stuff like that. Hit me up.
Noted that Eonid Park was quieter and less crowded, whereas Sismigiu was always lively and filled with people from various categories, including future mothers and those enjoying drinks and walks. For Zotter, Sismigiu was akin to a park in the style of Lenator, characterized by correctness, amusement, and charm. In the evening, as the crowds dissolved, Sismigiu took on a romantic note. A specific incident mentioned a young lady who had smiled and then disappeared, illustrating the fleeting joy characteristic of the park. Another notable figure, Tudor Arghezi, preferred to sit on a bench under a linden tree in Sismigiu, a place that encouraged artistic expressions and contemplation of the beauty of nature. Writers Lovinescu and Eftimiu, both known as rural people, often visited Sismigiu, meeting on well-maintained paths or for literary discussions in the Monte Carlo restaurant.
Oh, wow.
For them, Sismigiu offered a pleasant experience, in contrast to Carroll Park, which they found less attractive. The residents of Bucharest spent their leisure time strolling the city's streets, either arm in arm or alone. This leisurely walk represented an accessible and enjoyable way to spend time in the capital and admire the urban landscape. However, this didn't stop them from attending the theatrical performances offered by renowned venues, drawn by the large and convincing posters. A variety of elements completed the picture of Bucharest during that period, including the Rockefeller and Humboldt scholarships, frequent updates of the census, products like filter coffee, children's animations, literary awards and distinguished juries, two-piece swimsuits, plans for a subway, generational conflicts and political parties, train ticket discounts, superfuturist with superlative futurist, Ford automobiles, condoms, film cinemas for movie enthusiasts, French perfumes, twice daily street watering, foreign magazines available at kiosks, police fingerprinting procedures, elegant clothing and intellectual conversations, Gillette razors, American books promoting the power of positive thinking, the right to file complaints at the post office, intelligence tests, concerns about melting ice caps at the North Pole, matches, Pilsen beer, copyright, home movie projections on 16mm film, popcorn, underwater weddings with grooms and priests in oxygen masks, the press ball, portable typewriters, Nivea and night creams, unrivaled flour for cozonet bread with 3 nulls, beauty pageants such as Miss Romania and Miss Europe, horse races and the Jockey Club,
They had it all.
decorated and equipped with the latest devices, beauty salons, Shell gasoline, vending machines on Elizabetta Boulevard, Bayer Aspirin, Cyclops, foreign car dealerships, automatic taxi meters, hospital deposits, mountain cable cars, Eva Depilatory Clinic, Dr. Cantacuzino Institute of Serums and Vaccines, books on tape available for purchase at 31.
Sorry about that. That's the doorbell. No, I'm not seeing fit to hook up the doorbell where it rings in both apartments at the same time. So it's not like the other apartments got a bell in the apartment that it only rings in that apartment. It also rings in mine. That's that awful, annoying, ringing noise that you hear in the background. I apologize for that.
One Calia Victoriae with home delivery at 377.05, 24-hour pharmacies, automated stores, available phone books, fingerprinting at the police station, elegant attire and intellectual conversations, Gillette razors, unlimited bread flour, competitions, and joy of living, joy diviver. All these elements contributed to the vibrant life of the city. Yet, in these times full of diversity and brilliance, there was also a well-guarded secret that wandered the city's streets, seemingly hidden in the city's shadows, waiting to be revealed. A mysterious enigma lingered in the air, waiting to be discovered, adding an aura of mystery to the city. Thus, Bucharest continued to be a city full of surprises and secrets, waiting for someone to unveil and bring them to light.
I totally enjoyed that. Bucharest in the 1920s. Sounds like a little New York, sort of, you know what I'm saying? All the horse-drawn carriages and the cars and all the art and all of that. Of course, I think it's been told from a different economic class perspective there. But, you know, back in the day, everybody kind of aspired to be that. So, you know, people would probably save money and go to these fancy, schmancy art galleries and stuff like that. They didn't have no YouTube and none of that back then, you know what I mean? So people just went out and do things. Kids were out there running around. No video games and all of that. But what a time in history to live. The hope for a better, you know, time coming and stuff like that. It's kind of sad that that region wasn't allowed to develop naturally instead of with all the political turmoils and the wars and the skirmishes and everything that's good that went on there. But that's all right. We're going to bring them out to the world. We're going to let the world know about the Balkans, you know what I mean, and thing. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this with me. I'll leave a link in the description to this video so you can go check it out without me babbling and the awful distraction of the doorbell ringing. But you know what I mean? I'll leave other videos here that I reacted to on Romania, so you could check it out. And if you like what I react to, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when I'm putting out videos. Also, like the video, comment down below. Tell me what you think. Give me some little insight of what Bucharest is like now as compared to what this film has portrayed, okay? In the meantime, you all take care of each other. Cool runnings.